All right, so we're going to do something a little bit different. So I'm going to ask you a question that you've never heard. We haven't discussed this ahead of time.
Correct.
This is just a cold conversation,
Right.
like many of our conversations.
Like many.
Like just a question, and then it just sparks a conversation, hopefully. And it may be a short podcast because it may not be a good question. I don't know. We're going to see.
Okay.
All right, so I was listening to this podcast the other day.
Shocking. Paul. Shocking.
And because I like to listen to things that are deeper philosophical questions and that kind of thing. The guy being interviewed, his name is Paul Conti. He's a psychiatrist, multiple PhDs, written a lot of books on suffering and that kind of thing.
Okay.
And so one of his premises that the interviewer actually debated him a little bit, so I thought it'd be an interesting debate for us today too. And the debate was this, is that his premise is that all evil is rooted in envy.
His premise.
His premise is that all evil is rooted in envy.
Okay.
And he gave the example, he said, like, if you take Hitler, for example, as like when we think of evil, we generally think of Hitler,
Yeah.
And he said, so if you think about the root of Hitler's motivation to perpetuate the evil that he did on the world, and particularly on the Jewish people, was envy towards the Jewish people as a race, envy towards the territory that other people had, envy towards the power that other countries had, envy towards other leaders that they had, envy towards like his particular segment of even German culture, wanting them to be superior in every way and envious of any other group that was above.
Okay.
And so that motivated him towards evil.
Okay.
And so he's saying that every single act of evil can be rooted in evil.
In envy.
In envy. Sorry. Evil is rooted in envy. Do you think that's true or not?
And just so I'm clear,
Okay.
a basic definition of envy, right?
Yeah.
Is an unhealthy desire for something that somebody has, correct?
Yes.
Is that's basically what that is?
Yeah, I mean, in the Bible, we call it covetousness, that idea that I become obsessed with something that you have.
And how is that really different than when we say jealousy? Because that's what I know there's a little bit of a difference. That's why I'm trying to see what the difference is with that.
I mean, it's a nuance.
Right.
I think it's a very subtle difference.
Okay.
I think...
is envy almost like more powerful? Like you might be a little jealous, but envy is like the next level.
Envy's like the next level.
Okay.
Like it's almost a consuming, like it becomes a motivation deep inside.
Like I'm driven to something because I become envious.
Right.
Like and I might be just he said every evil action.
He said all evil is rooted in envy. Because we're the type of people that we're thinking about these things a lot because we have to preach about
and
the
the
idea
problem
of
I
envy.
have with his point
Yes.
is that the first murder was out of envy.
Yes.
Cain killed Abel.
Yes.
Because something he didn't have. And
Right.
something he wanted that he had, right?
Became obsessed by it,
and
and it consumed him.
And so that's very, that's the first thing we have in our scripture for our faith.
Right.
And so it's like, but I don't know if I can. I hear it, but I don't know if I want to buy it.
Was Jesus killed because of envy at its root core?
That's you're splitting hairs.
Not
on it.
really.
You're splitting hairs on it because I believe yes he was they were envious of Jesus in that day because he was the fame and the power, right?
Right.
But I also believe that it wasn't like they were envious, like I want to be Jesus. They were more threatened by what he meant to their societal change. Like it was twofold. Like I think they were envious, but I also think they were afraid of Jesus. Like Jesus was turning the whole thing upside down. So like they I felt like what killed Jesus was more them wanting to keep their system intact, not more so that they just were envious and they wanted to be him and get rid of him.
Yeah,
I think it was a little bit of both, but it wasn't. It's not. It's nuanced a little bit, like you said.
I don't know. I mean, I think if you think about it, like if Jesus is sitting in a room
Right.
and he's teaching, right?
Correct.
There's people there, but there's also Jewish leaders.
Yeah.
Sadducees, Pharisees, people of the council, people the high priest have sent to see what's going on, right?
Yeah.
So they're just sitting back watching, and Jesus is gathering the crowd, and the
Right.
crowd's enamored with Jesus, and Jesus is saying stuff like, well, you've heard this, but I say this, and people are like, oh, wow, man, he's taught like nobody else ever.
Okay.
And so like there's this, it just begins to stir people up, and it becomes a challenge to their power structure. And so they become envious of the fact that Jesus can garner this just through his teaching and not through the fact that he has a title. And it at its root core, I can see where you could say, well, yeah, because it wasn't like they were just looking for a movement of God and were excited about a movement of God.
Right.
They didn't remove themselves from it. But because they centered what was going on around themselves, then everything out from that is envy. Like, I think that's what Paul Conti is actually trying to say.
So the idea that I go rob somebody because I don't have any money.
Right.
Even though I would be like, I want to go out here and I'm going to go kick in the back door of Best Buy and grab myself a PS5.
Right.
Because I can't afford to get it.
Right.
Is he saying then I'm envious of those who can get it? That's why I did the action, or I just want it. Like, I'm not thinking.
But why?
I'm not thinking
But
about,
why do you want it?
Just because I would like to have one because I like playing video games, but I just can't afford it right now. But like my desire to play video games and have that was not because I'm mad that my friend had it. I just can't afford it.
Yeah, but like you would never want it if somebody else didn't have it.
No, the only way I would never want it is if it never was made.
That's what I'm saying.
But
but like the fact that other people around you have it, like it creates the desire for you for it.
That doesn't make any sense though.
It does,
because I'm saying that there's a lot of things that like do you want a Tesla?
I mean, I wouldn't mind having one.
Do you really want a Tesla? Because like
it's not like I don't sit around thinking about buying a Tesla.
Because you and I, we like trucks. So like for us, like your son, he likes Teslas.
A Rivian R1T, yes.
But I'm saying a regular Tesla, that's really going to get it for us. So just because somebody else has one, you're not envious of that because that's not what you want. And so I'm saying that like,
right. I don't act in an evil way towards that.
Right. But just because, but I'm saying because somebody created the Denali and it's there, I want that. I don't want it because my neighbor has one, which he does. I want it because it exists. So I think there's a difference. Like I don't have to be. So if I went to go steal a Denali, it would only be because I can't afford it. It's not because I want what my neighbor wants. Like I just want it.
Yeah,
I can't have it right
but
now.
if you're gonna go steal one, you're taking it from somebody who owns it.
I'm taking it from the dealers. Like,
they own it.
Okay, but I'm not envious of him.
It's theirs.
But I'm not envious of them.
You are because they have it and you don't. They have possession of it. Best Buy has possession of the PS5. It's theirs.
I know, but the thing
is, the same thing as if it was somebody in somebody else's house and you broke into their house and took it. It's the same thing.
But I can't really be envious of the company that sells it. That's what I'm saying.
You are, in essence, if you break it down.
So in essence, I'm envious of them for having something to sell that I can't afford.
For having something that's out of reach to you, and so you become envious of it.
Yeah,
and
I guess we don't look. I guess we don't look at that way. I can see that point from what you're saying.
Right.
That like it's abstract now because generally for me, envy becomes like you have something already.
Right.
And when I think of a corporation, like Best Buy doesn't make the PlayStation, but I think of it like they just made it. Like so, I'm not like they're almost just. It's like. Just a sterile almost, like they're not a entity of like they're not personhood. So I don't look at it that way.
Yeah, it's like one of our friends has actually put a deposit on a Rivian truck. Right? It's a really nice electric vehicle. If you don't know who Rivian is, but basically it's really nice. I would love to have this truck. If I could go buy any vehicle of my choice, it would be a Rivian R1T.
Yes,
it would be my truck. And so when he gets his, like whenever that does happen, I'm going to get to ride in it. I know.
Yep.
And I'm just going to be a little jealous of the fact that I just don't have one, right? It just costs too much money for me. I just can't justify it. For a lot of reasons, for me, it's just not going to work.
Correct.
But envy would drive me to think about, okay, well, when he and I are out driving it, I could just, I could beat him up, leave him by the ditch, leave him in the ditch and just take the truck. Or I could plot in some way because I'm friends with him. I could get close to him in some way. I could figure out how to steal the truck. We could arrange something. You and I could work together.
We could,
and then we could sell. I'm just saying, envy would drive me into evil thoughts, and I think that's where he's saying like if it becomes this drive and this pull towards doing something that is evil, then that's where it becomes. And he's saying that every act of evil is rooted in some form of envy.
Well, maybe
at its core.
Maybe it's true, because as you're talking about it, I just never have really been that envious of anything.
Yeah.
Like, I've been jealous of something. I've kind of wanted something, maybe a little cover, but I don't think I've ever let it get to that point.
Right.
Because like you said before, it just seems ridiculous. Like when you're talking about, like, yeah, you might like it, but like, I'm not, like, what's it going to do to set me on a path that I'm burning it down for? Like that's a good point. Like, I'm not gonna go to that level. I'm not gonna go to that extreme.
Right.
Yeah, it's because a lot of times you think about envy, it kind of can seem insignificant. But when you talk about in this situation,
right,
it's a lot different, which I think is why you thought the podcast was probably fascinating, because it doesn't sound as bad.
At the surface, you're thinking, no, that's not.
Yeah, exactly.
Like evil is just evil, but really, in the grand scheme of things, it when you break it all down, it's because there's a want in you that's not being satisfied. And a want in you that's not being satisfied can only come from something that you've seen somebody else has. Whether it's a wife, whether it's a girlfriend, whether it's a job, whether it's a possession of some kind, whether it's power, whether it's influence, it's something somebody else has that you don't have, and so it becomes this force within you that is, if you unleash yourself to it, can lead you into acts of evil. And it's like I was watching this, I was looking at a post on Twitter as a thread that a psychologist had done, a PhD, and she was a neuropsychologist. Mm-hmm. So she was talking about how our brain works. And she was talking about how, like, the brain within its subconscious, like, it does a lot of things automatically for us that we don't, like, consciously think to do. Mm-hmm. And a lot of that is it operates in ways to conserve energy. Yeah. And so there's a lot of stuff going on around us that our brain automatically filters out and says, you don't need to worry about that. And we're just shutting off information about that. And the example that she gave was, like, let's say that you start looking for a new car. And so if you want a new Tesla, Tesla Model S, like, so you're thinking about a Tesla Model S or a Rivian R1T, and then all of a sudden you start to see that vehicle everywhere because you've been looking online for them. You kind of been doing, maybe you've gone to a dealer, you've test driven one, and so now you start to see them everywhere. And what she was saying was it's always been there. Those cars have always been there. It's just that your brain subconsciously just tuned it out because it wasn't necessary in your core beliefs, and in the core of your brain is where your belief system resides, and your brain is always working subconsciously to validate your belief system. And as your brain does that, it looks for things to tell you that you're right. Right. And what has to happen for us to change our belief system is for us to consciously pull ourselves out of that, right? Yeah. To be able to say, okay, am I being envious? So I could see, like, I was thinking about this evil envy connection, and I can see how if subconscious, if you're not one of those people that steps out of your subconscious and actually starts thinking about the why am I feeling this way? Mm-hmm. Why is this healthy for me to be, everywhere I look I see this car? Mm-hmm. Because then that can lead, if you don't check yourself consciously, your subconscious can pull you into places of obsession, which will pull you into actions of evil because of envy. And it's your brain just validating you need that thing over and over in your head, validating over and over again. Every time you see somebody with a PS5, you're like, man, I should have one. Man, I should have one. Man, I should have one. I know Best Buy's got a lot of them. I could just go kick the door down and go get me one. And it's just a validation, and it becomes a justification in your mind for that evil that you know is something that you shouldn't do. But you begin to tell yourself that you've earned it, you deserve it, other people have it, why not you? And so it's a subconscious validation of your belief system that you should have that thing.
Yeah, I think that's really difficult, especially in our culture. Contentment is, because that's the antidote, right? Yeah. To jealousy and envy is being content. We talked about a lot of times, just with what you have, where you're at, just if you can just somehow be satisfied with today, because that's all you have, right? Yeah. That's really difficult for us because our culture is always like, get more, get more, get more, get it now. Everybody's having fun. And then social media doesn't help because everybody is posting their best filtered days, and they're making everything appear that it's fantastic. And I think that's the thing you're saying too, is that, like, can you really get beyond that and have real conversations, have real dialogue, be real with people, right? Like I think it's fascinating. I observe and I look at things, right? Like your son Brock has a PS5, and my son, you know, a little younger than yours, has a PS5, and no, they have more time because they're younger than us. And I remember I used to like playing games, but like I can already tell and know that both of them, like they work more. They have less time to play it.
Right.
And so as they continue to mature and get older, the thing that video game did is it's not going to be as worth it.
Right.
Like to run out and get the next one because it's just where it fits in your life, right?
Yeah.
And but just because everybody around you has it, it does intensify your desire to fit and belong. A lot of times in our culture with that, but then you also got to start asking the validating question, like, is it what value is it going to bring to my life? Do I really want it just to want it, or do I actually want to use it? You know, and then like you always said, why even do I want it? Like, is it a place of escape? Am I trying to use it for some filling another gap? Is it a placeholder? Like, it's all those type of things, you know. And I definitely think that like you definitely start obsessing about something when you start looking at it a lot, right? Like you know, you and I like the Shape of Origin. So you can go down that rabbit hole of so many videos of that, you know, or like a CNC machine or whatever it is, like little things like that that we're interested in that there's just so much content on. And then the more you look like, man, I really want to go ahead and get that, right?
Yeah.
But then I think for you and I, we both stop and ask, okay, am I really going to use it?
Right.
I've done that before. What's the motivation? And so I feel like for me, that's been a big thing. That as I've matured, I stop myself and saying, okay, what's my real motivation for this? Do I just want something new? Am I just trying to fulfill something with a purchase again? Like, what is the real pull for that? And I like if you're a jealous, covetous, envious person, I think that's something you have to stop and ask yourself is why.
Yeah, and I think that's
why is nothing ever enough?
Because it's so rooted in yourself. And it's funny that like that's part of the 10 Commandments that you shall not covet, right?
Yeah.
You shouldn't covet.
Yeah.
And then the other part of it is like you should love others as you love yourself.
Right.
And so if getting something that's cool and nice and fun, like in our culture, like technology, you know, you get a new watch, get a new phone, get a new car, new whatever. Like that's fun and it's exciting when we do that. And it's a culturally approved thing to do. The problem comes in when you maybe sacrifice things that are healthy to achieve the thing that you think is healthy, and there may not be anything evil in it, but maybe there's something that you sacrifice incorrectly to achieve that thing. And I think that what the argument that the two people in the podcast, they didn't get to the depth of what I wanted them to get to, because I wanted them to go. All right, well, here's the thing: how do we define what evil is? And where does the definition of evil? Like, in other words, if I'm a young father and I want a PS5 because all my friends have a PS5 and they don't have kids yet, but I got a kid, and I don't get my kid something that my kid needs, my kid needs to step up to the next car seat, but I'm gonna keep him in the other one because then I could take that money and instead of buying that car seat, I'm gonna go buy the PS5.
Yes.
You know, how would we define that as evil?
And see the thing
that's where I think we got to. I would love to get in. Like that's an interesting.
Now you're getting into the nuances where I think goes back to your subconscious, right? Like I don't believe that father, because I've been that young guy.
Okay,
I've been that young father, right? I had my first child when I was 17, right? And had my last at 25. So imagine your son Brock having 4 children by now, right? It's crazy, is it not?
That would not be well. I don't think it would go well.
You don't think so?
No.
I mean, it'd be fine. He's a good guy. He'd figure.
He is now.
He'd step up to the plate.
But if he started at 17, man, I don't know, man.
You're not quite sure what that would. What I'm saying I
don't think his mother might have would have killed both of us if he had started at 17.
This podcast would not be happening
I would not
at
be.
all.
I would not be here. He would not be here. And my wife would be in prison.
That's so horrible. I understand. But I'm just saying, like, obviously, to the point where Brock is at now at 25 and where I was at is vastly different.
Sure, yeah.
And some of the things and mistakes that he could make or choice he can make, like you said before, could have been different. Like Brock buying a PS5 and me buying a PS5. There's a lot more layers of that. Because like I said, what are you taking from? And there were times where now I can look back and I would say that it was more jealousy probably because it was quick little stupid stuff. But like, yeah, my friends were at different stations in life because of different decisions. I'm in the same station, so I feel the same things.
Right.
But like maybe I could have gotten another car seat for my boy. Maybe I could have bought some more clothes like in that season that we let them run out. You know what I'm saying? I went and made a splash purchase and got a GameCube, right? That's where we were at back then, right?
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so it's like, is that evil? Like to know, like our Bible says that to know to do good and not is sin. And we know sin is evil. And so I think there has been some things that I've known that maybe there was a good that I could have done with that. And I didn't do that. You know what I'm saying?
Sure, yeah.
And like,
yeah.
and like, because I think we teach our kids to share, and because we teach them that it's better to give, and we're teaching them that to try to have them have a heart that is not jealous and envious, right? And so I feel like we try to teach them moderation and temperance, and realizing that no, you can't have the whole sleeve of cookies. I'm going to give you a cookie. And so I feel like that still translates to when you grow older and you're making decisions to be like, yeah, I it's not my time to have this yet. But I think to your point, it goes into evil when it's like, I'm going to do whatever it is, hook or crook, to get that thing.
Yeah, like if
whatever that is.
If another kid has a whole sleeve and you got 3, teaching a kid that the 3 is okay, the 3 is a blessing.
Don't go to school tomorrow and take that whole sleeve.
Don't
from
go
him.
take the whole
yeah,
sleeve.
Right, exactly. Right.
And celebrate the fact that your friend has a whole sleeve.
See, that's the thing. See, that's the problem that I think we have a big problem with, Paul.
Yes.
That's the thing.
Yes.
It is super hard for me to celebrate that my neighbor has that Denali.
Yes.
And he has the Denali and a boat. Like, he has both. And the funny part about it is he has my same house. Like, if you come over to where my house is at, you know, I have the same elevation?
Yes.
If you go down the street on the other corner, I wanted the cul-de-sac house. He has the cul-de-sac house. It's my elevation, my color. He has a black Denali and a boat.
So he's got your house. He's got your
I
truck.
want to kick
He's
his
got
door
your
in.
boat.
I do. But I'm just saying, I'm tongue in cheek.
Yeah.
But it's like, it's hard to celebrate. Because I drive by, I'm like, man, how does he? All I could get was the house. That's all I could afford was the house.
Yeah.
How did you get the house and the boat? You know?
Yeah.
And so, like, it's very hard to celebrate. If we're honest, sometimes for me, I'm not going to say anything. I try to be jealous, but it's hard. It's sometimes hard to celebrate. Like, when you say, like, to see somebody, like, let's not talk about you have the sleeve of cookies, but I don't want to celebrate you got a whole sleeve and I got one.
Well, sometimes I've taught myself it's hard because I feel the same way. Like if somebody has something, somebody achieves something or whatever, it's like if I'm honest, what I'm feeling inside is jealousy.
A little bit, right?
And when I make myself intentionally celebrate with them, like verbally,
True. Yeah.
then it pulls me out of that.
Yeah.
Like it does at least help temper that and helps me recognize that. Yeah, it is a good thing. It's good that they have achieved something.
Yes, it is.
It's good, and for me to feel some kind of evil towards them or some kind of hate towards them because they have something I don't, like that doesn't do anything to them, but it just erodes my soul over time. And so it pulls me into perpetual thoughts of evil. And I think that's that self-validation. It just kind of keeps going over. Yeah, you should have that. Yeah, you should have that. Yeah, you deserve that. He doesn't deserve that. What's he done? And you just kind of get into that cycle. And man, that's just such unhealthy thinking.
That is unhealthy.
But some people live there. Some people live and some of those people that you encounter who are very angry.
Yeah.
It's because they're constantly in that cycle of, well, I don't have what everybody else. Somebody's wronged me. I didn't get what I deserved. There's something, and so it's just this evil that's just kind of circulating in their spirit, and it just brings about this anger because at its core, it's because somebody got something that they didn't get, or that they had some pain that they didn't feel like somebody else got.
Yeah, that was the biggest thing for me.
Yeah,
I didn't, because growing up, I was an only child. my parents were able to give me everything I wanted. So from a perspective and possession place, that hole in my life was filled.
Gotcha.
So I never felt like I was never envious of like you, because I felt like it was just what it was.
Right.
But when I
You were the kid everybody else was envious of.
yeah, probably. Yeah, probably
And
so.
something like
Yeah.
they had to come over to ride your dirt bike.
Yes,
You know
exactly.
what I'm saying?
I always had all the games. So
Right.
that's very true.
Yeah.
And so, but when I became a young adult and things were hard, I did get a lot of that bitterness of feeling like I don't deserve this,
Right.
or I'm getting treated the way I don't deserve, and that is a dark spiral, bro.
Yeah.
And that's not good for your soul. And when you feel that you're getting something you don't deserve, it will make you do things irrational. It will make you look at things differently. Like it will, like you just, it's almost like a frenetic energy of trying to like fix things. And I remember always wanting to like make leaps. Like it like time was too long.
Yeah.
Like I don't want to take 2 years. I need it to be over. I need it to be done as quick as possible.
Right.
I need this situation to be done tomorrow. And it's just it eats you up, man.
Yeah.
It eats you up. And then like you said, you do see some of your other friends who, you know, seem like on the outside it's a little bit more cruise for them.
Right.
They're going to their second house. You know, they have working vehicles.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like they're not walking. Like it seems like they're able to go on vacations. They have like they're doing. And see, I think this is the thing. I think it's easy for us to not be jealous of the extravagant. It's hard when it's just the normal. Like when you just can't do the normal. Like if you can't afford
we can't go to Disney. We can't go to the beach.
I can't afford Netflix.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Right.
Like everybody has Netflix.
Right.
And so like I think that's where it becomes like piping hot mad. Because that's what it was for me. Like I was just like, I'm not asking for Disney.
Right.
I want to be able to go to Chuck E. Cheese. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
I just want to be able to go take my wife out on a date night every week. And so those were the things that I felt, those are the dangers, that it was just like, it ate me up inside.
Yeah.
And it became where I made some bad decisions because I wanted to see, like, I got to get that. And the thing is, we hate the phrase keep up with the Joneses because we know it's so bad. Like nobody wants to say, yeah, I'm trying to keep up with the Joneses.
Yeah,
but if you
right.
ask anybody,
I am the Joneses.
And I love. And I know I'm talking about your son a lot today, but I love your son.
Yeah.
And he on his YouTube channel, you know, he reviews camera stuff. And one of the things I love about him is that he'll always say, I don't know if I just want to get this new piece of equipment because I just want it because it's out.
Right.
Because that's the thing that he knows is there. And I love that because in his business, in his industry, there's always the latest, great.
Always something
he's
new,
in
man.
tech.
Yeah.
And so I love that Brock has to always check himself with that. And he's aware of it and he's honest with himself. And I think a lot of times we're not, that we do want to have the new shiny thing. Like for him having a new camera, it's hot. It's going to give him some new likes on his video. But does he really need to spend that money on it? You know, and that's a question for us. Like, do you really need that thing? Like, do you want to take your kids to Disney, or do you want to have the pictures that you took your kids to Disney?
Yeah, but then I think it also is that you have where does the evil enter into? Because as you struggle through stages but you see your friends are at different stages. Like it's almost like they're the next leg in the relay.
Yes.
And you're chasing them.
Yep.
And they just keep running and you can never really get the hand in the baton. You can't make that connection because they're always ahead of you. And so then every time you see something that they have, see a trip, you see pictures, whatever, like it's anger.
And it reinforces that.
It reinforces
you're
that.
Right, you're right. You're right.
And the bitterness grows.
It does.
And
Yeah.
then it's a Cain and Abel situation. Because that's essentially what
Okay, but don't you think? But we all have experienced that.
Of course.
So then, what do you think is the tipping point between you and I and when somebody does something that goes over the line? Because we all have that rub. We've all tasted that. We've all drank that cup. What do you think is the difference between how you might say is normal and then the abnormal, which will become the Cain and Abel, which will become the Nancy Kerrigan? If people remember what I'm talking about with Nancy Kerrigan.
Yes. Little hammer to the shin. The Tanya Harding to the shin.
So sad.
What was the movie? It was about the brothers that fish, and Brad Pitt was in it. Anyway, and the dad took the sons fishing.
Yes, yeah.
And they were trout fishing and fly fishing in the river.
Yes.
And dad caught a bunch of fish. The boys didn't hardly catch anything. And he said to them, boys, he said, the Lord has blessed us all today. He just blessed some of us more than others.
yeah.
And so I think about that a lot. Like that's if you can pull yourself out of, and if those sons could just look and say, man, I caught some fish today, instead of looking at how much dad caught and comparing it to their fish.
Yeah.
Like whenever you start to compare,
Okay.
there's always going to be somebody who has more.
Yeah.
There's always going to be some reason you can find to be angry because you don't have what somebody else has. And even if it's just in your mind, it's well, I just want the basics. Well, yeah, but you still have something. It's not like you don't have nothing. So I think there's always some way which we could look to the person in the next level, because you're at a much different level than you were as a 22-year-old.
100%.
But there are people who could look at you now and think that you're ahead of them and say, man, I just wish I had what Brandon has. I wish I could just have the house that Brandon has.
Yeah.
You know, I wish I could just have the cool shoes that Brandon has. Like all that stuff, you know?
Yeah,
I wish I could have the sons and the wife that Brandon, like that people could look at your life now and say the same thing, even though you're now still looking at other people and saying, man, if I could just have what they have, if I could just have the cul-de-sac house with the Denali and the boat. And so I guess at every stage, we're always going to find somebody that's ahead of us. And so if we can just step outside of our subconscious and just really consciously focus on what is good and what is a blessing in our lives, then we can push back the evil.
That's what has been the biggest change for me. It's just what you just said. What keeps me content and what keeps me not chasing anymore is that as I remember what I didn't have. And I'm very thankful, right? Because I remember like 32-year-old Brandon couldn't imagine what 42-year-old Brandon has.
Right.
And 22-year-old Brandon would thought that this would never be a possibility.
Right.
And so I feel like we lose that perspective. You know, we lose that. Like whenever we have that time when we want something more or we're just disenchanted, sometimes, like you said, just stop and think about, like, man, what was your dreams and hopes 5-10 years ago? And maybe sometimes those haven't happened yet. And maybe you haven't, because some of the things that I have in my heart for 5 years ago, it still hasn't happened yet either.
Right.
But man, there are some things that are beyond what I thought would be. And there are some things and prayers that I had that I said, man, God, if you just gave me this, I'd be so happy. Man, I've been gotten that.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
That's in the rearview mirror.
And
right?
so it's like, that's what keeps me more content now is remembering when I didn't have. You know, like whenever I can't afford to get a shoe, you know, whenever I can't afford to get the shoe that's nice, or whenever I think about, man, somebody has a bigger shoe collection than mine, or I like to have shoes. I remember when I had to walk with a shoe that had a hole in it. And that was the only pair of shoes that I had.
Right.
And when it rained, my foot got wet. But it was the only dress shoe I had, and I couldn't afford anymore.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yep.
Like I remember that. You know, when I think about the fact that I want that Denali, I think about how many cars I had that were garbage.
Yep.
That were embarrassing. You know, the beat up ones that you were embarrassed to pull up to school with.
Smoking.
You know, when you see the light, then you got to keep revving the engine because it's going to shut off.
Believe me. Yeah,
Dude,
I've been there.
That's so embarrassing.
My truck literally caught on fire in the car rider line when I was dropping my kid off at school.
It?
Yeah.
At school?
Yeah. Brock turned around and saw it was on fire and just walked right into the school, didn't say anything.
He should have.
And some other parent was like, hey, your truck's on fire.
I think.
And they had to run in and get the fire extinguisher. Like it was right in front of the school building, right in front of the entrance.
It was embarrassing.
Oh man, it was horrible.
It was embarrassing.
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah.
It's embarrassing. Right.
Yeah.
You know? And so, like, I had a car catch on fire, too. Caught on fire right there. Had to walk home in the snow.
I did love that truck, though.
You know?
That was a great truck.
And so the thing is that, like, you laugh about that and you think about that. And it's just like, those are things that, like, those are experiences that you can look back on and be like, how can I not be content right now?
Yeah.
That's the thing that I'm talking about. Like, man, just in your marriage and stuff. And I think that's just the thing that we just have a lack of appreciation. We have a lack of gratitude and thankfulness. My wife asked me like last week, what is she praying for? And I was like, just increased desire and awareness of thankfulness and gratitude, because that's where I feel like I'm at a season in life. All my children are healthy right now. All my children are doing pretty good in life. I'm just kind of thankful for that. Like the church is doing well, that we're here. We're seeing a lot of people come in, and so like it's just easy for me when other crap is going around to just kind of be like, just kind of push that aside.
Right.
And it's a good. And I've been talking to you about that. It's a new space for me. Like I just feel like I'm turning a corner in my mind and in my age of looking at things. Like this is okay. Like I'm not getting as worked up about it because I'm much more happy that I'm seeing God doing things in my life.
Right.
And so God doing things is much more important and fulfilling and kind of settling than God giving me things at this point in my life.
So gratitude at its core is the antidote to envy.
100%.
So like if we can just focus on gratitude,
Yes.
it just takes away all the power that envy wants to have to pull us into evil.
And the thing about it is I think that like you talked about, a lot of people would say it's hard for me to find something right now to be thankful or grateful for because we're in the midst of our circumstance. And I think that in the midst of your circumstance, like for us, right? We were praying for growth, and we were praying for kind of a revival. We were praying for a reawakening for our church.
Yep.
And that's happened. And now that growth has brought on some pains.
Yes.
And so now there are some stressors, there's some stresses. What are we going to do? Blah, 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 blah. And so you can almost become ungrateful for the blessing because now the blessing has brought another problem.
Right.
And so I feel like the circumstance of we need more space, we need to do that, like, but can we still be thankful for the reason? Like there's many churches who would want to have that problem. And I feel like that's what we always tell our staff and we got to tell ourselves is that it's easy for you to point the problem, but like some of these problems are coming about because God's doing something, taking you to another level or because of a blessing. And I just think that like, it's hard for us to be grateful because sometimes we're just focused on the trees. We're focused on the here and now. Don't you agree?
I mean, yeah. I mean, I think that in other words, we could just still become bitter even as we lead a growing church because somebody else is leading a church that's growing more quickly or they have more resources or they're in a better location
or they already got a building.
They already got a building or something like that we don't have. There's always something that somebody else has. If you just want to look at it in ministry, like there's 1,000 reasons for us to be envious, and a lot of people become envious, and they try to chase somebody else's calling. They try to chase somebody else's ministry, and I think the older I've gotten, the less effect that has on me, because I just become content in what God has called me to and the context that He's put me in, and I think the more content that I've become with that, the more I've seen our ministry grow, because it's been less about I just don't compare. Like I just. What do we need to do to take the next step is my focus. And God, I'm grateful. I'm grateful you brought Brandon to work with me. I'm grateful that you've brought our team that surround us. I'm grateful that you've given us the elders that we have, the leaders that we have. I'm grateful that we prayed for a diversity in the church congregation, and it's showing up every single week. And we're not even really doing a lot of marketing or whatever. It's like a movement of God is happening, and so I'm just really grateful for that. And I don't really. When I say I don't care what other churches are doing, that sounds like I don't care about the ministry of the church, the greater church. I obviously do. I just don't look at other churches and what's going on there in a sense of, well, I need to have that because they do.
And that's the biggest thing that you're saying is that, like, in every aspect of our jobs, our relationships, our friends, our marriages, is that instead of looking at what you don't have that you want, you can just be grateful and thankful for what you do have. And know that you couldn't have it. And that just changes your idea. Like it changes, like no one has the perfect marriage, right? But I'm thankful that I have a woman who has been with me for 21 years.
Sure.
Like I'm thankful that she's been with me through all the ups and downs. Like I'm thankful that like, yeah, are your kids going to do everything you want to? No, but I'm thankful that they're good kids.
Yeah.
I'm thankful that they are loving. So I think that's the whole idea is that's why it's the cure is that it takes your mind off of what you don't have that can lead you down this path that's going to be a spiraling cesspool, and it reminds you and you're thankful for what you do have, and then you can invest that energy positively because investing that energy in gratitude will pay off more gratitude. Investing that energy in envy only leads to more envy.
Thanks again for checking out.